listening to the Sports Circus, and I'm Mike Golick.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all natural, dry-aged USDA prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course, the king of all, those gigantic and massive cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. USDA Prime Wagyu. That's the only thing they carry. Hell, even those half-pound burgers. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call and find out what's for dinner at 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935 for UppercutChops.com. Yes. And a big welcome to everybody listening in on our network affiliates, CBS, NBC, Fox, all of our independents from coast to coast as well. Everybody also streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and X, which would be Twitter. For all those that don't know, there was a name change. And everybody watching on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, and Time Warner cable affiliates and Hotel TV in over 600,000 rooms from coast to coast. Thanks for joining us here today. And right from the top, and boy, do we have something for you, folks. You know, we think about this award-winning content. Now, we have done thousands of shows here, thousands of hours, nonetheless, of top-tier content for people to either complain about or to love, to embrace, whatever. People love this show, and they have for many years. But, you know, the one thing that the Sports Circus hasn't done, unlike the four-letter network, what those guys did is unthinkable. And those ladies, too. ESPN. Are you ready for this one, folks? Are you sitting down? You better lie down. ESPN, according to Fortune magazine, apologizes for nearly 30 years of a scheme to defraud sports Emmy Awards. What? Apparently, they say some members of our team were clearly wrong. What in the world's going on? Now, this was first put out there by the Associated Press. Fortune picked it up by the AP. And listen to this. This is appalling. And, you know, we work our butts off to try to really bring you good content in a particular way where it's, you know, in the middle. And we're not leaning one way or the other way, whatever. But think about this. The four-letter network has apologized to the organization, meaning its employees apparently, that, oh no, that's right. They apologized to the Sports Emmy Awards for submitting fake names in categories where they were not eligible to win. This is unbelievable. So a network said in a statement recently, quote, "Some members of our team were clearly wrong in submitting certain names that may go back to 1997 in Emmy categories where they weren't even eligible for recognition or statuettes." Close quote. Unbelievable. You know, the statuettes are those things they hand out, right? That's like the trophy, right? So the Emmy scam was first revealed by The Athletic, which reported that the four-letter network personalities like Kirk Herbstreit, Lee Corso, and Desmond Howard on College Game Day were given awards they were not entitled to. And the boos keep coming, folks. There was no evidence, the report said, that any on-air winners knew what happened. Oh, really? Is that right? The National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, which administers the Sports Emmy Awards, discovered the fraud through an investigation which led to ESPN doing its own probe. Really? Yeah, I think that was one of those, we knew the gun was loaded, but, it's in the wrong hands. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, they said, being the four-letter network, in a statement, this was a misguided attempt to recognize on-air individuals who were important members of our production team, close quote. And the hits keep coming. Now, the Athletic reports said on-air talent were not allowed to be included in those credited for the Emmy categories of Outstanding Weekly Studio Shows. Hosts, analysts, and reporters on the show could win individual awards, but were prohibited from what the Academy called double dipping. So fake names were submitted with the same initials as on-air reporters like Kirk Herbstreit, Lee Corso, and Dirk Howard for Desmond Howard. Lee Corso was supposed to be, actually one was handed out for Lee Clark. How do you like that? And for Kirk Herbstreit, somebody named Kirk Henry was the recipient of these fraudulent Emmy Awards. Unbelievable. As a matter of fact, their names appeared on credit lists as associate producers. What kind of crap is that? Now, the Athletic reviewed credit list for the years College Game Day won for Best Weekly Show 2010, 2011, 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 18, and several phony names were on there. This is unbelievable. I wonder what Disney thinks about this. Now, the Athletic said it was not known who led the fraud, but Craig Lazarus, vice president and executive producer of original content and features, Lee Fitting, a senior vice president of production who oversaw College Game Day and other properties, and Drew Gallagher, a coordinating producer on College Game Day, were among the ESPN employees the NATAS ruled ineligible from future participation in the Emmys. Now, a statement from the Academy said it found several fake credits submitted by ESPN to multiple sports Emmy competitions. And of course, once ESPN senior management was alerted, quote, the network took steps to take responsibility for the actions of its personnel to investigate thoroughly and to course correct, close quote. Seriously? These guys, unbelievable. How could they do that? How dare them try to defraud the world? Now, those steps included returning statuettes issued to fictitious individuals, the Academy said. And, of course, the four-letter network brought in outside counsel for full investigation after it was made aware of the scam. Really? And, of course, they had said in a statement, quote, individuals found to be responsible were disciplined by ESPN, close quote. Really? And how were they disciplined? This is unbelievable, and it's just unfathomable. And you think about all the... Let's look at this and how it affects each and every one of us. Because why are we covering it? Because there is a financial impact here, folks. I had a discussion with somebody about this recently, and I said, look, there was a fraud going on with these Emmy Awards at ESPN. And this is to a former professional football player. And he said, well, what's the big deal? What's going to happen? I said, well, the big deal is, first of all, let's think about how ESPN could benefit from such a scam. How they could benefit, now, I don't know. I wasn't there. I'm not saying that this is how they benefited. This is my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. How they could have benefited is by saying, oh, yes, our show is a award-winning show, blah, 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 and sponsor new company, whatever that is, right? This fictitious company could say, hey, you know what? We want to put our money into sponsoring an award-winning show. And so therefore, maybe they send in $100,000 or $1 million or $10 million to sponsor such a show. Well, think about this, folks. Now the personalities make extra money, the company makes extra money, but how does that translate to people like us? Oh, that's right, because you see that sponsor, that company, that fictitious company, whatever, maybe it's a beverage company, maybe they have to raise their prices by 10 cents a can or 25 cents a can or $1 a can or whatever the heck it is. Maybe it's a can of something, whatever. The point is, or a bottle of something. Well, the point is, folks, we all have to pay for the fraudulent actions of the four-letter network. And now it gets even worse, because let's think about TV contracts. So now that possible fraud of Emmys or whatnot that's been uncovered with these people for Kirk Herbstreit and Lee Corso and Desmond Howard, according to the Associated Press, who reported this by The Athletic. So those fake names for Kirk Henry for Kirk Herbstreit, Lee Clark for Lee Corso, and Dirk Howard for Desmond Howard. Well, what happens to all those people? They get more money in contracts now also for their names, because now they're award or Emmy award-winning broadcasters or journalists or whatever the heck you want to call them. So what happens now? The network with their pay TV subscription, whatnot, all those prices go up because now they got to pay these people more money. So you see, it affects each and every one of us that watch sports or buy products at the store that may be sponsored by these particular organizations who actually sponsor those types of programs. So you see, folks, this affects each and every one of us, but nobody is going to talk about it in this manner like we do here on the Sports Circus, because we give you how it affects a lot more than what you happen to may read or may not read, or what you hear or what you may not hear. So at the end of the day, we're giving you a real cause-effect relationship. Now that's Emmy award-winning content, folks. Absolutely. All right, we're going to be back here on the Sports Circus. We're going to talk NFL in just a few minutes, folks. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at 702-799-9935. Again, 702-799-9935. Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door. store without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at uppercutchops.com or call 702-799-9935. That's 702-799-9935. 702-799-9935. Or make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Thanks, Roy Firestone, for throwing it back. And this segment is brought to you by the Chicago Food Favorites page on Facebook. Chicago Food Favorites. Check it out, folks. Kind of a cool little thing. If you like Chicago pizza, maybe Italian beef sandwiches, hot dogs, all kinds of good stuff, good baked goods, everything that Chicago is famous for great cuisine, check it out over at Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Just join, have some fun, post some recipes, post your favorite pictures. Even if you're on the other side of the planet, it doesn't matter. You can still go there and enjoy the page, enjoy all the posts and all the pictures, and interact with everybody else there. That's Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. And make sure you like, join, follow, and subscribe. Actually, don't even have to subscribe. Just join. It's just for fun, folks. We don't get anything for saying this. It's just something that we like to enjoy like everybody else. And guess what? Everybody else joining us on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast. We appreciate that, including our friends over in Honolulu on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the New York Yankees and the Alabama Crimson Tide, who are minus Nick Saban. We talked about that recently. Also, a big welcome to everybody that may be listening in Southern California with our friends over at NBC News and CNBC Financial over there, plus to the other independent stations. You may be tuning in, you may be not. Guess what? We still love you over there. We were over there for many, many years, and thanks for all of your support right here in Las Vegas. Thanks for joining us, as well as Atlanta, Georgia, WDJY 99.1 FM, over in Auburn, Alabama, home of the Atlanta Braves, WAUD 1230 AM, and WBGY down in Southwest Florida. That's 90.3 FM, plus all of our other 206 independents from coast to coast. Thanks for joining us on radio. Everybody on TV, you know who you are. Whew. Okay. Wild Card Weekend was largely predictable, with the exception of one game. In my opinion, predictable. With the exception of one game, I got to tell you, folks, I had, and that's Sell the Bookmaker. I'll put my placeyourbet.vegas hat on. So Sell the Bookmaker had all the games right except one game, and it wasn't even close. We had the Cleveland Browns going into Houston and beating the Texans, and boy, that one blew up in our face. It was ugly. I mean, looking at the total stats, the team stats, right? You had Cleveland and Houston were relatively close. Hell, they were only 32 yards off. Passing yards, there's only 12-yard differential. Rushing yards, there was only a 20-yard differential. Average yards per play, though, it was 8 for Houston and 5 for Cleveland, and that is a big difference of the game. Points scored, obviously, we know what happened there, 45-14. No fumbles were lost. Cleveland threw 2 interceptions. That'd be Joe Flacco. And Cleveland also was sacked. The quarterback was 4 times. Now, Houston did not sack Mr. Stroud any times during the game. Third down efficiency, almost a 2-to-1 superiority for Cleveland. Time of possession, Cleveland had the ball for, about 11 more minutes. And they only had 1 more penalty. So the game was a lot closer than that 45-14 score. But looking at what the Browns did offensively, I mean, Flacco threw 46 times. And C.J. Stroud only threw 21 times. So double the time means you're catching up. You're trying to play catch up. If Flacco was 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, Stroud 3 touchdowns no interceptions. Even Davis Mills jumped into the action, was 1 for 1 for 6 yards. But rushing-wise, the Texans had, they had Devin Singletary with 66 yards, and then another miscellaneous, we'll call it 12, 13, 14 yards. It wasn't really too much. And if you look at what Cleveland did, now remember, Cleveland is missing Nick Chubb. And Cleveland still ran for, probably about, 30, 56 yards, which is still a lot less than what the Texans did, but not too much less. Actually, it's not really a lot less. This game was a lot closer stat-wise than one would imagine. But it just so happens that the stars aligned for the Houston Texans. And, it looked like Cleveland wasn't even in the game. Look, at the end of one, it was 10-7. Great news. But then they stretched it out. Houston scored 2 times, 2 touchdowns in the second. Cleveland only scored 1. They scored 2 touchdowns in the third. Cleveland scored none. They scored another one in the fourth. Cleveland scored none. And that was the end of that. So this game was really over in the second quarter. But then again, at the half, it was 24-14, a very reasonable deficit. But end of day, Cleveland they just laid an egg out there. Not really sure what happened there. But now these other games were fairly predictable. If you look up and down this list, the second game, and that was the second game on Saturday, and that was a very, very cold day in Kansas City. But the Chiefs really dominated the Dolphins. That 26-7 score really should have been about 40-7. Maybe I would even argue 40-3. So Kansas City absolutely dominated the Dolphins. And of course, the next day, we gave away, being PlaceYourBet.Vegas, gave away the Packers. And we took 7 at Dallas. And the Packers scored, I think, the first 27 points. It was a complete destruction of the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, nice round of applause for Green Bay, which we typically don't root for Green Bay, but in this one, it was one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't. But Green Bay was smashing the Cowboys. Dallas came back with a couple of garbage time touchdowns because Green Bay was up 48-16. And then, of course, they gave up 16 and 2 late touchdowns, but it didn't matter. Green Bay completely dominated that game. And Dallas looked like a 6-11 team rather than at the time going in at 12-4. Or actually 12-5, or whatever the heck it was. It doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, Dallas did not look good at all. They were 12-5 going in. Packers were 9-8 going in. Well, Packers moving on. Now, we also gave away the Detroit Lions. And we gave that away on the money line. Detroit comes away with a 1-point win over the Rams. Now, it was complete domination by Detroit in the first half, and the Rams came out to play in the second half. And that ended up being 24-23. And the Rams had a chance to take the lead, but they couldn't. And at the end of the day, it's the Lions moving on to San Francisco. We're going to get into those games in a minute. But Detroit played a very, very good game. They really did. And if it wasn't for the rookie on the Rams, let's face it, you had one guy on the Rams that caught, 182 yards in receptions, if I'm not mistaken. 182 yards. Mind you, this is a rookie. Plus, they still have Cooper Kupp on that team. And so Matthew Stafford playing against his old club, he didn't do that bad. But we have to think about what happens with the players with the Rams. Is this the end of the road for the Rams? I don't know. Who are they going to re-sign? Who are they going to keep? I have to tell you, that rookie of Puka Nacua, boy, that kid really something. Obviously not really running the ball so well, but yeah, it's 181 yards receiving, 9 receptions, 181, 1 touchdown, targeted 10 times, and this kid was legit from the start of the game. Cooper Kupp was only targeted. Well, he's targeted 9 times. He only caught 5 passes for 27 yards. This was purely the Puka Nacua show. Demarcus Robinson targeted 6 times. He only caught 3 for 44. Atwell, 1 for 38, a long one. Ronnie Rivers, 3 for 35 yards. They passed it around a little bit. A bunch of guys caught the ball, but at the end of the day, if you look at the comparison, the side-by-side comparison, L.A. actually dominated in the total yards. They had another 90 extra yards, 91 yards, than Detroit. And it's the passing yards, they were 102 yards more. Rushing yards, Detroit was better by 11 yards. Average yards per play, even the Rams were better there. And let's face it, when it came down, there was no interceptions, no fumbles lost. Sacks allowed. Detroit allowed 3 of them. Third down efficiency was a dead heat. And time of possession was literally 10 seconds apart. And Detroit had 1 extra penalty. This is a very evenly matched game. And now, mind you, it was at Detroit. And the Rams have been playing very good defensively for the second half of the season, averaging maybe around 20 points, 21 points a game against, which is certainly playoff bound. But guess what? Detroit did just that, but their defense showed up just a little bit better and edged out the Rams 24-23. Now, of course, Detroit's going to head off, and they're going to stay home, and they're going to play Tampa. We're going to get into those matchups for that divisional round in the next segment. But looking quickly at the balance of what happened, I got to tell you, folks, these games were very easy to pick. And my favorite one, of course, was Green Bay over Dallas. But I think one of the easier games to pick in this whole thing, if you look up and down the card, was probably the Buffalo Bills. I mean, they just destroyed the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't care what the stats are. Buffalo completely manhandled the Steelers.
Don't you die on me.
Absolutely manhandled the Steelers, and it wasn't much of a game at all. Ultimately, when you think of what's going on with this club, you say, well, wait a minute. How are they better or worse? The Bills were just better. Even Josh Allen, he ran a touchdown for 50-odd yards, whatever the heck it was. It doesn't matter. It was the Bills in an easy victory. And by the way, our favorite one besides that was the Buccaneers all over the Eagles. The Eagles looked like an awful team because they lost their last 6 out of 7. Folks, they are an awful team. They got off to a 10-1 start, and they finished horribly. So good news for the Buccaneers. They're moving on, going to Detroit. We're going to cover all those matchups in the next round right here on the Sports Circus, right on your favorite station. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come. I'm your Ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
If you are trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more.
800-957-6209. 800-957-6209. 800-957-6209. That's 800-957-6209.
The old way of living with diabetes is a pain. You've got to remember to do your testing and always need to stick your fingers to test your blood sugar. The new way to live your life with diabetes is with a continuous glucose monitor. Apply a discrete sensor on your body, and it continuously monitors your glucose levels, helping you spend more time in range and freeing you from painful finger sticks. If you are living with type 1 or type 2 diabetes and you use insulin or have had hypoglycemic events, you might be eligible for a CGM through your insurance benefits. U.S. Med partners with over 500 private insurance companies and Medicare. We offer free shipping, 90-day supplies, and we bill your insurance. Call us today for a free benefits check.
800-659-7805. 800-659-7805. 800-659-7805. That's 800-659-7805.
ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio. Of course, it's welcome back to the Sports Circus. Listen, folks, it's live. Anything could happen. This segment is brought to you in part by our friends over at the American Business Trust Company, helping companies with strategy, sales and marketing, capital resources, and establishing companies with physical locations or on the internet. You decide. You bring the idea. The American Business Trust Company can help with the rest. For more information, contact the American Business Trust Company at info@abtrustco.com. That's info@abtrustco.com, or call 702-799-9935, 702-799-9935 for more information for the American Business Trust Company. And welcome back to everybody. Radio, television, you know who you are. Streaming. Everybody that also has decided to go to Facebook and like the Chicago Food Favorites page. Thanks for doing that as well. Those are our friends, and we like to help our friends. Of course, we don't get paid anything for it, but we just like to help our friends, if you know what I mean. All right. So in the last segment, it was a wrap-up of what had happened in the previous round, a wild card weekend. Now we move on to the divisional playoff. And we've got some games here that, again, they seem rather predictable, but we're going to let you decide. And Sal the bookmaker will talk a little bit about it, but at the end of the day, you'll still have to decide for yourself what you think is best. Now, starting on Saturday, January 20 at 4:30 Eastern Time, it is the Texans rolling into Baltimore. Yes. Texans at Baltimore. Now let's go to the odds maker here real quick. How about this one? How about the Texans being +9? That's by Caesars Palace. The MGM has them at +9. DraftKings has them at +9. BetUS has them at +9. And some other organization, some online, has them at 8.5. But the consensus basically is 9. Think about that one. 9 points for the Texans, who score a lot of points against a Ravens team that has a pretty good defense. So let's think about that. And let's think about the total points scored. The total points scored, or the total, the over and under, is estimated to be 43.5, except at MGM they say 44, and I think it's FanDuel, if I'm not mistaken, they have it at 44 as well. But 43.5 and 9. Boy, that's pretty enticing, because there's different ways to bet these games, folks. I don't know if you know this. You don't just have to go with the point spread. You can also take a teaser, which means they'll give you extra points all the way up to, what, I think it's 11 points. It depends on the organization. Some of them have 2-point teaser, 3-point teaser. You could buy the half a point. So if the line is 9.5, for example, or if the line is 9, you could buy the extra point or the extra half a point. So therefore, if the difference in the game is 9, like 30-21, for example, that extra half point will go to your side, and that's called the hook, and you'll actually win the game by the hook. And so in this particular case, we see the consensus is 9 points that the Texans are getting at Baltimore. So, I mean, first of all, that's a lot of points. Baltimore's got a bunch of weapons. We'll give them that. They've got a pretty good defense. We'll give them that. And look, folks, this is playoff football. Playoff football is a little different. I mean, outside of the Cleveland Browns game, that the Texans beat the crap up on the Cleveland Browns. I mean, let's face it, the Texans didn't really do that much more as far as statistics, but they ended up getting the points off turnover and they won the field position battle. And that's how they ended up winning the game so big. But I'm not so sure that they were that much better than the Browns. Now you ask yourself, is that 9 or 9.5 points at Baltimore a true line? Well, you figure that, first of all, the home field is worth 3 points. So if that's the case, if the consensus is 9, subtract 3 as if they were playing in a neutral field. So they're saying home field is worth 3 points. That's why it's 9. So really, they're saying the Ravens are a 6-point differential between the Texans if they're playing at a neutral field. Now, that point differential also can be made up by the best kicker in the game, which is Justin Tucker, who kicks for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, the Texans are an indoor team. It's going to be a little bit cold over there in Baltimore this coming game, this weekend. So is the 9 points substantiated? Maybe, but this is a playoff game now, folks. Yes, we did see a couple of big scores and big differentials over the weekend, in the last weekend, in the wild card games. But I'm not so sure that that 9 points is going to hold up for Baltimore. And it's probably going to be one of those 28-20, or it could be a 31-28 kind of a game, or it could be even a 31-23 game, which is still 8. I can't see how Baltimore covers the 9 points. I just can't. Again, this is playoff football, and don't think that those Texans won't be ready. They will be ready. Yes, they're an indoor team, but they're playing outdoors. I don't think there's that much of an advantage, but we'll see how that one goes, folks. All right, moving on to the next game. This one features the best team in the National Football League as the 49ers, who are very well rested, against the very hot and streaky Green Bay Packers. And the Packers have proven they can win on the road as they just dismantled Dallas in Dallas. But this is the 49ers, folks. The Packers are plus 9.5 across the board. And the over and under is 50.5. And we'll say we're going to call it 50.5 because everywhere but one place, some online place, has it at 50.5. So if that's the case, you're looking at 9.5 and 50.5. Now, how many points can be scored in this game? I mean, let's face it. San Francisco could score 50 points by themselves. They are absolutely loaded. Number one, they have the best player in football in Christian McCaffrey. He is clearly the best player in football. Oh, by the way, they have the second best player on that team in Deebo Samuel, right? And just to make matters worse, they also have Brandon Ayuk. And oh, by the way, they have a guy by the name of Kittles on their team. They've got 4 bona fide Pro Bowl weapons on that team and a very able-bodied quarterback in Brock Purdy. So you turn to the Packers side of the ball, you've got a hungry Packers team. But look, hunger is hunger. When you roll into San Francisco and you're playing those guys on their turf, I don't know. That's a whole different animal. I mean, sure, Aaron Jones may have a great game, and this guy, Dobbs, may have a good game. Jordan Love may have a pretty good game, but I'm telling you, this one screams 49ers in a blowout. I can't see how Green Bay even shows up to this game. This will likely be the end of the road for the Packers. I don't care how much, people are in love with the idea, they're the underdog. Sorry, folks, not in this one. This one is 49ers all day, every day. All right, the next game, which is the next day. This is the Sunday game. The Buccaneers travel to Detroit to play those very hot Lions. And the Lions are peaking. And guess what? Baker Mayfield's having fun with the Buccaneers. His career has been revived. And it is essentially the Buccaneers plus 6.5 at Detroit. Now that 6.5 looks pretty darn good. And the point total is at 48.5. At most of the betting outlets, only one place actually has 47. That's a big point differential. Somebody put a lot of money on that over and under. I can't really see it. I mean, I have to look more at it because Sell the Bookmaker and PlaceYourBet.Vegas does what? Follows the money. Now, the money on this one, you have to look at what the Buccaneers have done. And the fact that this line is under 7, that favors the Detroit Lions betting group. But now remember, that same group that had the over and under at 1.5 less than everybody else also has the Buccaneers +7. So that means the money has gone on Detroit at that particular venue, right? So the line jumped up to 7. It probably moved up a half a point, which usually takes about $50,000 to $100,000 in betting action to move that line at a particular casino or betting outlet. So somebody online put a bunch of money on the Detroit Lions. Sorry, folks, I had to look at this for a second. So you have to ask yourself, are the Buccaneers good at +7? I got to tell you, the Buccaneers at 7 look like a pretty good number to me, but the over and under at 48.5, well, these are two teams that are going to score some points. Now, the Rams showed up with defense in Detroit. That's why you had a total of 47 points. The Buccaneers have a pretty good defense, but their defense isn't as good as the Rams. And so you ask yourself, all right, playing in a perfect setting, indoors, can they score 48, 47 points? I mean, is this a 28-21 kind of a game? Because that equals 49 points, which conveniently goes over the total by half a point because they have it at 48.5. So what they're saying is if the Buccaneers happen to win, not better yet, if the Lions win, but they win by 7, maybe that line will close at 7.5. Maybe they have Detroit winning 28-21 and the Buccaneers +7 or +7.5. So it would technically be the dog and the over in this game. Now, that's a very interesting matchup from a betting standpoint. The Lions win the game, but it'd be very interesting from the betting side. And from what this is telling me, if that line moves an extra half a point, it's going to be Detroit and under if it goes down, or the Bucs and over if it goes up. Follow the money, folks, and we're going to take a look at the last game between the Chiefs and Bills. We come back here, right here on the Sports Circus on your favorite station. Don't go anywhere.
Can't beat fun at the old ballpark, friends. High pop fly. That would be a home run in a phone booth. I don't know what the big deal about Cracker Jack is. Did you ever go and buy a pack of Cracker Jack thinking you're going to get a prize and find no prize in the box? Here's the pitch. That might not sound important to some people when you're a little kid, especially from humble origin, and they cheat you out of a prize. There's a bouncing ball. Second baseman has the Barbary over to first. It's hard to think in laudatory terms of the product.
I think if there was an occasional box of Cracker Jacks that found no prizes for the little Harry Carey many years ago.
You got that right. And boy, when a box of Cracker Jack to me meant a lot of money. Here's a pitch, bounce foul. That's the most asinine marketing I've ever heard of. 1 ball, 1 strike. These guys say, well, you sing about Cracker Jack. I said that I only sing it because it's in the song. Here's a pitch foul back. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised, even to this day, some youngsters who buy a box of Cracker Jack don't find a prize in the box. 1 ball, 2 strikes, 2 out. Well, if you're going to talk about a congressman being crooked, here's a pitch foul out of play. Why not talk about commercial products who don't do what they represent to do?
There's a smash to Squires. He's got it. 1, 2, 3, nothing across. We're going to the bottom of the 7th now to score. All tied up. Milwaukee 4, the White Sox 4. Hey! Everybody! All right, Nancy, let me hear you. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I ever get back for its root for the White Sox. If they don't win, it's a shame.
There's a drive. Way back. It might be. It could be. And it is. Holy cow. This crowd is wild.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Al Bubba Baker, quarterback breaker and the rib maker.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP.TV. Folks, make sure to check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guest, our prior guest, our recorded shows, which are a podcast, which can be found on all podcast platforms, including Apple, iHeart, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Audible, Pandora, you name it, we're there. You can't get away from us, even on Libsyn. Also, make sure that you check out the partners page at thesportscircus.com. Lots of great partners over there, from the College of Southern Nevada Athletics to Al's #1 Italian beef in Chicago's Little Italy, to everybody else that's out there. Lots of great publications and books, and the American Business Trust Company, and all kinds of good organizations. Check out the partners page at thesportscircus.com as well, and make sure that you show them a little bit of love and support. A nice round of applause for them. All right, welcome back to everybody on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from coast to coast. Our additional 206 partners out there that carry the Sports Circus. They've got all of our programming in their computers, so they can play it whenever the hell they want to. That's great stuff. So we're well over 215 stations, whatnot, from coast to coast. All of our television affiliates, Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, and Time Warner Cable affiliates, Hotel TV, we're everywhere. You can't get away from us. All right. The final game on Sunday at 6:30 Eastern is the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes with his first road playoff game. That's not the Super Bowl, of course, against the Buffalo Bills. Now, these teams have seen each other in the playoffs before. They certainly know one another, but this time the Chiefs are going to the Blizzard in Buffalo, because it's supposed to be another big snowy day over there. And who knows, maybe the locals will take the $20 an hour to help shovel out the snow in the stadium, and they get into the game for free on top. But I think that's a great deal. Hell, I'd get out there and shovel for $20 an hour and get a free ticket to the game. Why not? That's good stuff. No other stadium does that. And you know what? Honestly, folks, the Super Bowl should revolve around the league from stadium to stadium. They should be playing indoors and outdoors. And let's face it, the weather is a part of the game, and it's a natural progression of the season. We've been saying this for a long time on the circus. Hey, let's face it, it starts out a little bit warm in the summertime, maybe in Los Angeles. Well, they play indoors there now. I don't know, maybe in places like Miami, right, where it's nice and warm. But in the wintertime, I think the Super Bowl should be held in places like Buffalo or Chicago or Green Bay or, I don't know, outdoor stadiums. Cleveland, like to see that. Cincinnati. Why not put the game out there? Let them play in the rainstorm over in Seattle. Whatever. Let them play in the mud in San Francisco. Let them play everywhere that the league has to offer, because that's fair and reasonable for all the other teams. I mean, why shouldn't we see a Super Bowl in Charlotte, North Carolina? I mean, it seems like a pretty good venue. And why wouldn't we see it just in other neutral cities as well? I mean, we could even see one in Tennessee. Why not? And let's face it, there are places that they would probably draw. They say, well, you know, we want to have a world-class city with world-class this, world-class that. Well, guess what, folks? They had it in Minneapolis. Minneapolis, with all due respect, is not a world-class city, so to say, with all the same everything that all the other big cities have. So if they can hold the Super Bowl in Minneapolis, why can't they hold it in Cleveland? Why can't they hold it in Buffalo? Why can't they have it in Foxborough? Why not? I mean, it seems to make a little bit of sense, doesn't it? So back to this game, where the Chiefs traveled to Buffalo. Now, the line is 2.5 across the board. So what this tells me, well, actually, one place has it at, I think it's DraftKings, has it at 3. That one doesn't count in this because all the others have it at 2.5. So what that says, folks, is that on a neutral field, if they were playing, I don't know, in New Orleans or something, well, they would say the Chiefs would win the game. They'd be a half-point favorite. So that's what this looks like. But because of the weather, because of the home field, they give the home field 3 points, hence the 2.5 that Buffalo is favored by. Now, the over and under, of course, this is going to change a little bit by the snow and whatnot there, but the over and under is essentially 45.5 across the board. So what they're saying is 24-21. Think about this. The Bills win 24-21. They cover the 2.5, and they stay under the total of 45.5, because 24-21 is 45 points. So don't be surprised if you see the Bills win 24-21 against Kansas City. That seems like a pretty reasonable score. I wouldn't look for a lot of field goals in a pair of teams that score a lot of touchdowns. Now, that makes a little bit of sense. I would look for more field goals in the Texans and Ravens game, and maybe a couple here and there in the 49ers game. But the 49ers game would probably be a big blowout. And at the end of the day, the Bills and Chiefs, you might see one field goal. So the over and under on the field goal total will probably be 1.5, and that'll probably be under anyway. And so why is this all important? Because it leads up to Super Bowl 58. Now, when we talk about that, we talk about the odds. All right, so the longest odds for Super Bowl 58 are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, basically a 30-1 shot, folks. 30-1 shot with the casinos, Caesars and MGM. And so, well, actually, MGM's got them at 28-1. But ultimately, that's a pretty good price if you want to throw away $10 and just throw it on it. I mean, I'm not really sure the Buccaneers can do any more damage than they already have. But, I mean, come on, 28-30-1, that's pretty good odds. Now, the Houston Texans are really no better. In fact, they're a little bit longer odds at 30-1 with Caesars and MGM. Why are those houses important? Because if you recall, I believe it's the MGM in which the NFL, it's either that or Caesars, I think it's the MGM. That's where the lineup cards are actually submitted about 90 minutes before kickoff. If that doesn't stink to something, well, not necessarily right. Let's put it that way, in my opinion. It just seems like there's a little bit of corruption there, but what do I know? It's just my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. So the Texans are 30-1 essentially across the board. The Packers are the same as the Buccaneers, 30-1 at Caesars, 28-1 at MGM. Never mind the online betting places. But to note, one of those betting venues, a lot of money was put on Green Bay somehow. I'm not really sure why, but they're all the way down to 20-1 at one of those online betting venues. Now, let's jump up to the Detroit Lions, who are getting a lot of respect out there, and the Lions are 8.5 to 9-1 favorites to win the Super Bowl, which is pretty respectable given the fact of where they're at. I mean, let's face it, they're just a click behind the Kansas City Chiefs, who are at 7-1 to win the Super Bowl. Not bad. The Buffalo Bills are at 5-1 to win the Super Bowl. The Ravens are at just under 3-1. They're at, well, say they're plus 275, plus 290. So we'll just call them 2.5-1. And the 49ers, of course, as the odds-on favorite, at about 1.5-1. They're basically at a plus 170, plus 175. One place got them at plus 160. So we'll just call them at, put up $17 to win $10, right? That's the 49ers. And frankly, I don't see anybody beating the 49ers. They are truly the best team in the National Football League with all those weapons. And I don't care what Baltimore's got to throw at them. I don't care what the Bills have to throw at them. The reality is the Super Bowl is played this year in Las Vegas, right here at Allegiant Stadium, indoor, perfect environment. And so it doesn't matter what the weather is and all this other crap. The 49ers are basically going to be playing a home game because this is Las Vegas, California, if you know what I mean. But we don't really like all that. We'd rather be Las Vegas, Nevada, but it is Las Vegas, California. There's so many damn California plates here. It's unbelievable. And so really this would be a home game for the 49ers whenever they play over here. It's kind of what it is in the first place. And so now you ask yourself about this coaching carousel. So question is Bill Belichick going to retire? I don't think he is. It seems to me that Bill Belichick is 14 wins away from setting the all-time record in wins. Where could he go where they have a quarterback, they have some weapons, they have a decent defense? Oh, that's right, maybe down to Dallas. And remember how Jerry Jones didn't really get along so well with Barry Switzer after he took over Jimmy Johnson's team. He won a Super Bowl. The reality is the Dallas Cowboys are only a couple of players away from really competing for a Super Bowl. And so Bill Belichick could come in there, but remember, this guy has to be what? The general manager and the head coach. That's the only way that really happens, in my opinion, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him bring a defensive coordinator with him by the name of Nick Saban. Yeah. Now go back in the history books, and those two coached together way back in the time machine back in Cleveland. 30 years ago, 37 years ago, whatever the heck it was, a long time ago. And so don't think for a minute that Bill Belichick is done, because I don't think he's done, and that seems to be the place that he could actually go. And you say, what about the others? Now, Jimmy Harbaugh might end up over in the Chargers organization. He's already had a good interview there. He might be having a second interview, and I think they're probably going to hire him because he's got a quarterback, got some good defensive pieces. So what does that leave out there for the balance of the league? Mike Tomlin may be taking a step out of the game for a little bit, and I happen to believe that the Chicago Bears, now get this one, the Bears are going to draft Caleb Williams. Williams said he doesn't want to play for the Bears. Whatever. And frankly, that is of really bad taste. I don't like that kind of garbage. But think about this. What the Bears could do is they could draft Williams. They could put a big quarterback, or I should say a winning quarterback in front of him, in Russell Wilson, who was released by the Denver Broncos. And Williams could train under Super Bowl champion Russell Wilson and be coached by Russell's former coach and former USC champion, national champion winning coach, Pete Carroll. All right. Now that makes sense because, number one, the Bears deal off Justin Fields to Atlanta. Let them deal with him. I mean, the guy, in my opinion, needs a ton of work. They get themselves the number one overall pick, which they have from Carolina. They'll get him on a rookie deal. The Broncos basically have to pay Russell Wilson a lot of money because they essentially benched him and said, well, sorry, kid, you're not going to play here anymore. And Pete Carroll's a free agent with a lot to prove as a coach. And this guy is one hell of a coach. This trio makes sense because really the Bears wouldn't have to pay that much. And they would take draft stock back from Justin Fields. So that may make a little bit of sense. I mean, let's face it, if they deal Fields, they'll end up potentially to Atlanta. They'll end up with the number one pick, the number 8 pick, and the number 9 pick, all in the same draft. And that's when you could draft other players ahead of the other teams for the other teams, trade them, and pick up a ton of draft stock for them. So ultimately, the Bears have a lot of control over this upcoming draft. We'll see what happens with that, folks. But I like the move with Carroll to the Bears, Russell Wilson to the Bears, Caleb Williams to the Bears. That would make a lot of sense. Sit that kid down. Let him learn from a Super Bowl champion quarterback. Outside of that, we got to go. We'll see you right here on your favorite station in about 23 hours. Until then, so long, everyone.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi Code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196. Paid for by Legal Alert Line.